The highway was empty except for the roar of the wind. A white curtain of snow swallowed the night, blinding headlights and burying the road in minutes. In that chaos, a lone traveler spotted shapes moving in the storm, people stranded beside a broken van, waving for help. Most would have kept driving. The temperature was falling fast. But something inside urged her to stop. She didn't know their names, where they were from, or what kind of trouble they carried. All she knew was that someone needed help, and sometimes a single choice in a storm can change every life it touches. Marissa had been driving cross-country for 2 days, chasing the kind of silence that only long roads and radio static could give. She was between jobs, between homes, between ideas of who she was supposed to be. The storm warnings had sounded hours earlier, but she thought she could outrun them. When the first flakes hit the windshield, she pulled into a small gas station, only to find it boarded up for the season. By the time she got back on the highway, snow had become a wall. She wasn't afraid of weather, she was afraid of people. Years of being overlooked, misjudged, and dismissed had carved a quiet shell around her. Yet as she crawled forward in low gear, headlights swept over figures struggling near the shoulder. A van tilted in a ditch, its doors half open, passengers trying to push it free. Marissa slowed. 11 of them, maybe more. Men and women wrapped in leather jackets and scarves, faces hidden under helmets. Travelers like her, only colder, hungrier, and trapped. She thought about the stories people tell, who's safe to help and who isn't, and how fear keeps good hearts frozen. Then she thought about the little heater in her back seat and the half-tank of gas still humming in her car. She turned the wheel toward them. The cold bit her skin the instant she stepped out. Wind howled through the valley, slapping at her coat. "Anyone hurt?" she shouted, but the gale swallowed her voice. 2 people stumbled toward her, their faces ghost pale. One pointed at the van, where a woman inside clutched a shivering child. Without thinking, Marissa opened her car doors and motioned them in. "Heat first, talk later," she muttered. She ferried groups of 2 or 3 at a time, back and forth through the storm, until all 11 sat crammed inside her small SUV, breath fogging the windows. The heater strained and frost still crept along the glass, but at least they were alive. The hours crawled. She rationed protein bars and bottled water. The stranded travelers barely spoke English, but gratitude needed no translation. They offered her worn gloves, a thermos of coffee, even a silver ring as thanks. She shook her head and smiled, embarrassed. As night deepened, fear slithered in. Fear that her gas would run out, that no one would find them, that she'd made a fatal mistake stopping at all. She whispered to herself to stay awake, tapping the steering wheel to keep circulation moving. Then a faint red glow pierced the snow outside. A distant taillight, maybe another car. Hope surged. Marissa flicked her high beams and honked 3 times. Minutes later, a snowplow emerged like a ghost, lights flashing amber. The driver radioed for rescue crews, who pulled the van from the ditch and led everyone to a roadside lodge. Inside, warmth and light returned. People shared food, dry socks, stories told in broken phrases and laughter. Marissa stayed quiet, exhausted but content. She had expected fear or regret. Instead, she felt an unfamiliar peace. Morning revealed what the night had hidden. The storm had collapsed bridges, cut power lines, and stranded travelers for miles. News crews arrived, eager for interviews. They called Marissa the mystery driver, the woman who saved 11 strangers. She hated the attention, but the travelers insisted she stand with them for a photo. When the story aired, reactions were mixed. Some praised her bravery, others questioned why she'd risked herself for people she didn't know. She read the comments later, every kind and cruel one, and realized how divided compassion could look when judged from a screen. A week later, she left the lodge quietly, driving west with the sunrise. She never expected to see those travelers again. But years down the road, when her life had settled into routine and the memory had faded into something dreamlike, she returned to that same stretch of highway. Snow lined the shoulders again. At the old gas station, fresh flowers rested by a wooden sign. To the one who stopped. 11 small symbols were carved beneath the words. She didn't need a translation to understand. Every winter afterward, someone left a token there, sometimes a scarf, sometimes a folded letter sealed carefully in plastic to survive the snow. The little wooden sign stood beside the highway like a whisper of gratitude. To the one who stopped. Truckers passing through said that a group of bikers, now older and gray-bearded, came by every year to brush snow off that sign. They didn't stay long. They'd clear the drift, place something small at the base, and disappear down the road before dawn. No one knew their names. No one needed to. The locals began to notice. A nearby diner owner started leaving a pot of coffee on the counter labeled, "For the Travelers." Highway workers cleared that stretch more carefully each winter. Even strangers who didn't know the story felt something different in that frozen place, a sense that kindness had taken root there, quiet but unbreakable. Marissa never called herself a hero. She refused interviews, turned down documentary requests, and changed her number more than once. To her, it wasn't heroism. It was humanity. She'd simply done what anyone should do, she said, though deep down she knew that too many people would have kept driving that night. The memory lingered like a heartbeat. The cold, the fear, the faces pressed against fogged glass, and that single moment of decision, to stop. The truth she carried from that night was simple yet heavy. Kindness isn't measured by safety or certainty. It's measured by the choice to act when it would be easier to look away. She learned that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a quiet voice that says, "Help them," even when you're afraid. Years later, when her hair had turned silver and the grandchildren gathered around her fireplace, they'd ask about the old photo on the mantel, a snow-covered road, a crooked sign, and faint figures in the distance. She'd smile and tell them the story of the storm, about the strangers who became a part of her life without ever speaking her language, about how fear melted when people reached out instead of pulling away. And every time, she ended it the same way. Her voice would lower, steady and sure. "The world can freeze you if you let it," she said softly. "But one warm act can thaw more than just the cold." Silence always followed those words. The fire would crackle, a log would shift, and her grandchildren would look at each other, as if they too understood something eternal had been passed down. The blizzard itself faded into history. Weather reports forgot it. New storms came and went. But its echo lived on. In road signs, in small roadside shrines, in strangers who waved when passing. In quiet acts of mercy that rarely made the news, but still changed the world one decision at a time. And so, as snow begins to fall each winter, that lonely stretch of highway still asks the same question. One carved not into wood, but into the hearts of those who hear her story. When the next storm finds us, will we drive past or stop?